Oh, with any luck, this is going to be in focus and properly exposed, unlike that Xbox video I made. That was embarrassing. How's it going, YouTube? This is Skull, and as hard as it is to believe, this system that I'm holding in my hands right now turns 7. March 3rd, 2024 marks the 7-year anniversary of the launch of the Nintendo Switch. Today, which is March 2nd when this video goes live, is actually the day when I got my Switch. I pre-ordered mine from Best Buy and they held a midnight release, and since I was in Central Time, they actually gave it to us about an hour ahead of time. So this Switch I have owned since before it launched technically. I still play this regularly several times a week. I've put in thousands of hours into this thing, and even though I now own a total of 9 Switch consoles, this is still my go-to Switch. This is still my main system, and I don't ever see myself upgrading away from it. In the past 7 years, a total of 140 million Switch units have sold. In fact, the number's probably higher than that by now. We're just waiting on the next quarterly report from Nintendo, which is just 15 million units shy of becoming the best-selling system of all time. It is really close, and I do believe it will pass the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo DS to become the best-selling system of all time. At this point, I think it's a guarantee. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. On top of 140 million Switch systems, there have also been 1.2 billion games that have been sold over those years as well, which is just an insane number. Over 1 billion Switch games are out there, bought by people, played by people, enjoyed by people all around the world. And wow, that is exciting. 7 years ago, when the Switch was about to release, we didn't really know if it would be a success or not. You've got to remember that Nintendo was just coming off of the failure that was the Wii U, which in the grand scheme of things only sold about 1/10 that the Switch has sold. And people are definitely going to look back on the Wii U as an unequivocal failure, but they're going to look at the Switch as an unequivocal success. Way more successful than any of us ever imagined it would be. I think most of us thought, best case scenario, it probably outsells the Wii U 2-1, maybe 3-1, gets some good games, but I don't think any of us ever expected it to actually be the success that it has turned into. And there's a lot of reasons why it has become so successful, why it has sold so many systems, why it's sold so many games, and why so many people love it as much as they do. I think a lot of the success can be attributed to probably the strongest first-party lineup that Nintendo has ever given us on a system. Thanks to games like Zelda and Mario and Animal Crossing and Pokemon and all kinds of other first-party titles, including Metroid, which they've really focused heavily on, and Xenoblade and Splatoon and all kinds of other games, Nintendo has just been giving us a lot of first-party games to play on our Switches, to the point where if you buy only those and nothing else, you still have a really strong library of games that you can't play anywhere else. I think that it goes without saying that the number one thing that can sell a system is the exclusive games. A system can be the most powerful system ever made and advertised as there's been nothing close to this, but as long as they don't have any titles that are worth buying, nobody is going to buy it. The Switch doesn't have that problem. It is an underpowered system, if anything. This is the equivalent of, say, Xbox 360 and PS3 hardware, somewhere around there. But it has a lot of really fun games, and that is what matters the most, is the games. It doesn't matter if they're not at 4K, it doesn't matter if most of them don't play at 60 FPS. As long as they're fun, people will buy the system to play those games, and I think that the Switch is a perfect example of that. I think it's proof of that. Of course, the Wii U also had a lot of first-party games, but not many third-party games. The Wii U was not really supported by third parties all that much, mostly just a few enthusiasts and a few studios that tried and then gave up within the first year or two. Not the Switch, though. I almost dropped it there. Not the Switch, though. The Switch has had incredible, very strong support from third parties and especially from indie developers. Plenty of games that people have developed that are available only on the Switch and PC. A lot of games that are only available on Switch. But my point is, the Switch has thousands of games on it that were created by third parties and indie studios and even just one person in a basement. Making games for this thing has been a cinch, and selling them has been a no-brainer. The games, like, do you remember when I said 1.2 billion games have sold? A lot of those have been indie games. A lot of those have been games that never would have found an audience except on the Switch. And there's just so much to offer on the Switch in terms of games. You got all kinds of graphics heavy, must-play first-party games, all the way down to very simple pixel games created by one person that you could finish in half an hour, 45 minutes, but they're all so fun, and the Switch offers a unique way of playing them. It's especially good for if you're, say, on a plane or a train, or if you're a kid in the backseat of a car during a road trip. Perfect console for that kind of thing. It's also worth pointing out that in the first year of the Switch's release, in the first 12 months, 9 first-party titles were released for it, including The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild as a launch title, which I will remind you guys actually outsold the system itself in the first few weeks of release, which is unheard of. We also got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we got Super Mario Odyssey, we got Splatoon 2, a brand new IP in ARMS, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Just to touch the surface, and that was just in the system's first year. Since then, we've got Super Smash Bros., we got Metroid, we've got Splatoon 3, we've got Super Mario Wonder last year, we got Tears of the Kingdom, we got a total of 9 main series Pokemon games, and a 10th was just announced last week, Pokemon Legends ZA. This is going to be the very first time that there are 10 main series games on a system. See all those games behind me? Yeah. Never had a time where 10 were on a single system until now, which is just nuts. And I think that goes to show just how popular this is and how good of a system it is when they want to keep making games for this. So it's safe to say that there's a lot of games on the Switch, and we're going to keep seeing a lot of games on the Switch. I wouldn't doubt that we're going to keep seeing brand new games released on the Switch probably for another 5 years plus. Imagine the Switch turning 12, 13, maybe even 15 years old, and people will still be putting games onto it. I can imagine companies like Limited Run Games or East Asia Soft putting physical games on the Switch at least 10 years after it releases, 3 years from now, just because the audience is huge. Switch players love the Switch, and oh man, it's so good. So good. I'm so happy to see this succeed. So, we have the Switch. What comes next? Good question. First of all, I will make this absolutely crystal clear. There's no Easter Bunny, there is no Tooth Fairy, and there is no Nintendo Switch Pro. People can make the argument that Switch games need a Pro version because the Switch struggles to play games at 1080p or solid frame rate or whatever. You think most people care? The number one thing that most Switch players care about is just playing the game. It doesn't need to look the prettiest. I mean, this screen only maxes out at 720p anyway. Most people are okay with 30 FPS. It doesn't need to be 60 in order to be good. If you think that 30 FPS is too low of a frame rate to enjoy something, then I'm sorry that it's impossible for you to go to a movie theater. Talking about the Switch Pro is kind of a moot point anyway, because I think we all agree it's not going to happen anyway. But what is coming next is unclear. It is going to be a brand new console. It's probably going to be something akin to a beefed up Switch, just called something else. We know from the reports that it will have full backwards compatibility with the Switch. So any games that you have on the Switch right now, you'll be able to play on whatever the Switch's successor is without any problems whatsoever, which is great. Nintendo's always been pretty good about backwards compatibility until, ironically, the Switch came out. We do know that it's coming out sometime relatively soon. It could be later this year. The signs are indicating more that it'll be early next year. We'll have to see. But I do think that since this is the 7th anniversary of the Switch, by the time we get to the 8th, we will have concrete news on what the Switch's successor is, what it'll be called, when it will release, what it's capable of. In fact, a year from now, it's possible that the Switch's successor will either be out or out in a few weeks. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to upgrade to whatever it is because, hey, full backwards compatibility. I mean, people bought PS5s knowing it could play PS4 games. People bought 3DSs knowing it could play DS games. So it'll be the same thing with whatever the Switch's successor is called, whether it be the Switch 2 or the Switch U or the Super Switch. I want to call it the Super Switch. That is such an epic name. Whatever it is, I'm sure people are going to get it and love it. And the fact that the Switch has such a strong library means that it's going to be a no-brainer to upgrade to whatever the next one is, or to buy the next one without ever having bought this. Who can possibly be holding out for the Switch 2 now? with how strong of a library this is and how cheap you can get the Switch Lites, sometimes as cheap as $100 on eBay. As far as the Switch itself goes, I think that its legacy is strong. It has an incredible lineup. It has a gimmick that worked out really well. This caught lightning in a bottle, and it's going to take a long time before the gaming industry can come up with something just as good. PlayStation kind of already started or tried it with the PlayStation Portal, which isn't a portable PlayStation. It just plays PS5 games off the internet, off the Wi-Fi, onto a tablet. It's not the same thing. The Switch is just so unique, and it just works so well that I am positive that 10, 20 years from now, people are going to look back on it quite positively. And I firmly believe that history will look upon the Nintendo Switch and the Lite and the OLED, the whole family, as one of the greatest video game consoles of all time. And speaking for myself, it's my favorite. My favorite used to be the Super Nintendo. I can finally, for sure say, without a doubt, my favorite video game system is the Nintendo Switch. And here we are 7 years later, and it is still going strong. I firmly believe it will pass the PS2 to become the greatest selling system of all time. And I believe that a few years from now, whenever its successor comes out, people will still be picking it up to play the games, even if there's a better one available, just because of the nostalgia and the feeling that this right here is something truly special. So thanks everyone for watching the video. Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on the Nintendo Switch turning 7. Also consider subscribing if you like this video, because I make videos like it all the time, just talking about random stuff that I find interesting, including video games, including the Switch. And now that this video is done, I can go back to playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PS5. Later.